call the meeting to order. Please stand and join us for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Vicki, anybody wishing to address? Thank you. We are minus one board member. Board member Tulke is out of town on important business, as he told me when he said he wouldn't be here, and I don't know whether I believed him or not about the important business part. I know he's out of town. He'll join us at the next meeting and we can ask. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the July 9th meeting, please?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. May I have a motion for approval of the agenda, please?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. And no conflicts of interest for today. And a motion for approval of the consent agenda, please.
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Post same sign. That motion carries. And we are on to the reports of the president.
President Alberty, members of the board, Craig Peters, Dean of Curriculum Instruction, President Alberty, Vice President Mickelson, congratulations, condolences, I'm not sure which.
You know, this is my 6th time, and I'm hoping that maybe I get it right so they don't do this to me again. I don't know.
This could be the year. Thank you, our past President Parker. Today is our last installment of Southeast Tech. This is our story, and we're going to say we're going to keep the best for last. Today we have Mr. Patrick Hoyer, and he is in charge of our invasive cardiovascular program. So I'll invite him up to speak to you.
President Alberti, members of the board, thank you very much for allowing me to come and speak to you today about my program. This is invasive cardiovascular technology. And this is a little unusual because unless you've had the unfortunate need to require our assistance, people haven't heard of us. So I often begin by asking people if they've ever heard of a heart attack, because that is my passion in my field, is that we're the ones who actually get to stop the heart attacks and to treat the individuals who are suffering from the #1 killer in the United States. So it's a really field that I'm passionate about, that my students are a very important part of the medical systems throughout the U.S. So our faculty member, that young gentleman up there, is our Director of Invasive Cardiovascular Technology. 18 years of teaching experience. I had taught once before at Bryan LGH College of Health Sciences in a similar program at that facility. And then I moved up to Southeast Technical Institute in 2007. I was actually an alumni of Southeast Technical Institute myself, so I get to follow in my preceptors and my mentors' footsteps. I have 17 years of industry experience. I've worked at St. Francis Regional Medical Center in Wichita, Kansas, and Bryan Medical Center in Lincoln, Nebraska. So I keep saying I do a yo-yo effect. I go out, come back, go out, come back. And I'm happy to be back in Sioux Falls again. And currently I'm in my last semester of completing my master's in healthcare ethics through Creighton University. So who are our students? Traditional students are actually from the region. There are only about 34 schools in the entire nation that teach invasive cardiovascular technology. So we're very lucky to have this in this region. Our students in this last cohort came from South Dakota, Iowa, Minnesota, North Dakota, Nebraska, and Colorado. So we have kind of a long reach, or a far reach out into different communities outside of just what's here in South Dakota. Transfer students come from four-year institutions, and oftentimes they've already had a bachelor's degree in another field, such as biology, chemistry, physical sciences, and they realize that they're not really employable at that realm or at that position, and so they come back in for a vocational training, such as invasive cardiology, where they can put that previous knowledge into work. And then, of course, we also have quite a few non-traditional students that are seeking kind of a new career path or are interested in medicine and interested in that change in workforce. So what do cardiovascular technology students learn? This is a huge list. In 2 years, we have to cram a lot in a very short period of time. And we break it out in kind of 3 areas. There's the first surgical assistant. In many ways, this is similar to surgical technology, except it's a little more advanced in the techniques that we utilize. In surgical technology, the physician does most of the what we call, the fun stuff. But in the invasive world, the physician and the technologists are actually working in tandem or working as a team together. And so there's a little bit more responsibility associated with that. Procedural circulation, it's kind of making sure that the patient is relaxed, comfortable, administering medications under the doctor's supervision if allowed, and making sure that the patient is the focus of the team. And then, of course, there's the radiographic imaging. In most states, we're limited to radio imaging or radiographic imagers. We learn how to use x-rays or ionizing imaging to take pictures of the vascular and heart systems to make sure that we know what we're doing and where we're at all times. So I included this slide just to kind of show you our world and what it looks like. So on the far upper left, that's the x-ray equipment that we have to learn how to utilize. It's extremely complicated. There are a lot of moving parts, and ionizing radiation is somewhat dangerous to the patient and to ourselves if it is not used properly or correctly. So they spend a lot of time learning those skills, those techniques, and how to protect themselves and the patient. The top right is kind of what the environment looks like in action. The bottom left is our tools of the trade. We're often called the cardiac catheterization lab or the cardiac cath lab. And the catheter is just a hollow silly tube, I call it a silly straw almost, that goes into the body, and we direct it under the x-ray to where we want to go. And of course, that last picture is a heart. So they have to understand all the vessels and the names of all the vessels that we're dealing with. And there's a heart up there, but we actually do the entire body, everything from stopping strokes to repairing blood flow to ischemic limbs. We're kind of doing the whole cardiovascular health in this procedure. So a lot of this is, it's really hard to find somebody to volunteer for students to put something into them and poke around their heart. So a lot of our technology is simulation. And the simulators really have improved the method that we use to train our students. When I went to school, we had a plastic model and a couple tubes, that's it. And then the first time you saw a procedure is when a real body was in front of you, really a learning curve there. So the simulation now allows us to do the entire procedure on a simulated patient without putting somebody at risk, and it has greatly improved and greatly sped up their training and their ability. By the time they go out to the clinical site, within a week they're actually doing procedures on their own or with minimum oversight because of simulation. So this is kind of the future of medical technology and how we're training students. So what do? Well, they do a lot. They are healthcare professionals who, through the specific use of technology, are there to identify and help cure cardiovascular disease. And I always give my ultrasound friends a little bit of a ribbing that they take pictures, and that's cute and all, but we actually are going to fix the things that they find, and that's kind of our role. We use x-rays, as I've said before, and we use the technologies and our skills to repair and treat the patient. And this is, whoops, I'm going to go back one here. Go back a slide. There we go. And so this is a picture here of just one of the x-rays that we would take. The student would be able to evaluate that x-ray and just determine if a patient has a disease process that needs to be repaired or corrected. And this is one of the correction techniques that we train them in. This is angioplasty. You probably have heard about it. It's the most common invasive procedure done in the United States. I think it's over 3 million now that are done per year in the United States. And what we do basically is we teach the student how to help the physician advance the balloon into the artery and inflate the balloon, restoring blood flow and saving the patient's life, which is the real cool part about this, is we're actually making a difference in the patient's life. And unlike surgery, our patients go home the next day and are back to work at least in the next week. So our students and this field is extremely important to the health of our community. So where are they employed? I added this. This is over the last 3 years. We don't just have a local effect. This is a regional effect. We have students that have gone to Colorado. Mayo Clinic has actually called and asked me for my students, and they have a program. So, we have a regional effect that goes outside just the Sioux Falls area. So we actually have quite a bit of an influence in the medical systems across this area. And they even have gone as far as Virginia, Idaho, and I was just told that one of my students who just graduated is now hired hired in Spokane, Washington. So she was going to work a little closer to home than that, but is now going to Spokane, Washington because of the need and the skill of her training.
Other than Mayo, where's the next closest?
There's a small one in St. Cloud, a smaller program, and it shut down for a while. It's kind of starting back up again, but that's probably the closest one.
And out like Colorado, because I saw that.
Yeah, nothing in Colorado.
Slide there.
Yep.
You got students from Colorado, and then clearly they're going back to Colorado. So
Yeah.
nothing there either.
Nope, there's nothing in Colorado, Nebraska, Iowa, Wyoming. Minnesota has some, just a small program in North Dakota that doesn't supply their needs, so we have kind of a large outreach.
Great.
Nationally recognized program, that's me up there, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I was recognized as one of the top 20 cardiovascular instructors in the nation by the National Medical Technology Schools Association. Accreditation status, we are accredited until 2026, so we got a 10-year accreditation, which is the longest accreditation you can be awarded by the JRC CVT. And this is kind of our data. We have students in the program in the surrounding areas, as I stated, the states up there, and I could add Washington now up there. 100% in the employment within 6 months, and that has actually been about 10 years now that we've had 100% employment. Graduations, the majority still want to stay in South Dakota, so that's the good news. But there's a limited number of cath labs in South Dakota. Rapid City, Sioux Falls, and Aberdeen are about it. So we do have students going outside, and this is the 2018 data, and actually I have to move one of these to Washington now because this was updated before she got that position. Our exam pass rates are 95%. The national average is between 65 and 70%, so we're well above the national average. And that's about all I have for invasive cardiology. Thank you very much for listening to me this afternoon. Is there any questions?
So is it about, back to that one, so that's 7 students in that class?
7 students is about what our average is going out to clinical. We'd like to see that increase. But there's a difficulty in that, as I stated, unless you've had the unfortunate need to require our assistance or a family member to require our assistance, you really don't know what invasive cardiology is. So when you have students coming out of high school, they are very aware of nursing, x-ray technology, physical therapy, physician, and usually ultrasound because of babies.
Yeah.
And because of that, these other widely and very important fields, such as invasive cardiology, are somewhat neglected and are unknown. So there's a huge, right now there's an extreme shortage of cardiovascular technologists across this country. And the unfortunate thing is we are not getting enough students into the schools that are there because people are not as aware of what the program offers or what it actually does.
And what could you grow to without having maybe to add, like what's the most you could handle for students?
Right now, probably 20.
Okay.
I have sites, actually, I have more sites right now than students. I have sites calling me on a weekly basis. Do you have a student for us this year? Do you have a student for us this year? Do you have somebody that isn't employed yet? Do you know anyone who's looking to change employment? And right now, with the state of cardiovascular technology and the shortage of technologists, the answer is often, no, I don't. There's just too few.
So is this a 2-year?
This is a 2-year program. If you're coming right out of high school, there are some prerequisites that you need to have under your belt in order to be successful. We don't want to set a student up for failure, so we want to make sure that they have their anatomy, a good understanding of medical terminology, some of their sciences, because, as I said, in 2 years, we have to cram all of that information into that student. So there's about a year of prerequisites, depending on how fast they take them, that is kind of required just so that we know that they will be more successful in the program.
So do you know how many students you have in year 1 and year 2 coming up?
Coming up, I think in year 1 will be 7 to 9 again. And year 2, I actually have a lot more than that, what we call our 3rd-year program. And that'll be interesting to see what that comes out to be.
So it sounds like a real opportunity to get the word out.
Yeah, what's the starting wage for?
Starting wage is about $25 to $27 an hour, depending on where you start. You start in Sioux Falls, some a little bit less than that because we pay everybody a little bit less here. So, so if you go outside, like the one going to Washington is around $30 an hour starting, and that's as a student right out of school. Mm-hmm. So it's a very good starting wage. Yeah. Equivalent to that about a nurse starting at the same period. Mm-hmm.
So what plans do you have for recruiting?
Recruiting, we've actually, to our admissions, we're doing quite a bit. We're going out to the high schools more, working really closely with the CTE Academy, getting that information. And this increase that we're seeing in our third-year group, what we call our three-year students, is from that effort. And also just advertising in general. There was a lack of advertising for a while, so advertising in general about Southeast and the wonderful programs, not just invasive, but the wonderful opportunities that we have at Southeast has actually increased and brought these students in.
Yeah, I mean, I just think of, obviously the community we live in here in Sioux Falls, when you've got Sanford and Avera, and you've got two heart hospitals, and, I can imagine you could very easily, if you just got the word out about what it is that you do and the need for them.
Absolutely.
You could, the
Yeah,
potential
and there's other ththings that we're looking
really
into. It'd be wonderful if we could get it into the Build Dakota Scholarship, because there is an extreme shortage right now, and I could get Sanford and Avera both in here saying that they need technologists, they need people to go into these fields. It's such a super specialized field that they need more training, and they can't just train somebody or cross-train into it anymore.
Yeah.
Do you have a brother that teaches at Patrick Henry?
I do have a brother that teaches at Patrick Henry Middle School. Yes, I do.
I saw the last name. I had to ask.
Yes, that is. He is related to me for good or bad. I have. If you want some dirt on him for later, you can see me after the meeting. I'd be more than happy to dish it out. That's no problem. And he would do the same. So.
What does he teach?
English.
English in 8th grade.
Oh, yes. So my son's going into 8th grade at Patrick, so we'll have to see.
Yes. Wonderful gentleman. I love my brother dearly. So.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you. President Griggs.
Good afternoon. I just, as a President Alberti.
Excuse me, I'm out of practice just a little bit. Could I get a motion to acknowledge the report, please?
Second.
Any further discussion other than of my incompetency? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
President Alberti, members of the board, I just wanted to express my thanks to Patrick for coming in again, as other faculty have done, but once again, an outstanding program. The other thing I wanted to just mention while Patrick is here, I wanted to thank him publicly as well, because he has led for 2 years now our Futures Committee, which is the committee that all the other committees on our campus report to about their accomplishments on the strategic plan. And it's been through his countless hours that he has kept, I think, Southeast Tech and our strategic plan moving forward through some very challenging times. So I just wanted to acknowledge Patrick for that contribution, because it goes far in excess of, in terms of beyond his full-time teaching role that he does so well also. So thank you, Patrick. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, strategic plan update. Tag team.
Yes, President Alberti, members of the board, thank you for this chance to talk to you about the strategic plan and give you an update of where we're at. We've got quite a bit of time here. If you need to use the restroom or something, you might want to do that now, because we could be here for a while. But we will try to go quickly. I'm not trying to rush as I'm speaking with this, but we do have a lot of information, and he keeps telling me I talk too much. So we'll try to go through this as quickly as we can. We want to talk about the strategic plan, where we're at, where we're going, what we've accomplished so far. The strategic plan began in November 2016. That's when it actually was finally approved. So we are not even quite at 2 years yet in terms of the plan, but we've had a lot of stuff that's happened. We wanted to start out a little bit with some good news and then some challenges that we know we're facing or have faced, and give you some ideas of what we're trying to do to overcome those. So some really good news: enrollment increase. I mean, obviously we had a 6%, over 6% increase from 17 to 18. That's excellent. It's looking good for next year, or this coming fall. Don't want to try to give you any numbers right now, but it is looking good. But retention is another important area, and our retention from FY16 to 17, and we won't know the FY18 until fall, went up 4.2%. If you look back at FY13, we started at 60, and now we're almost at 70%. any kind of increase of a percentage in retention is gigantic. And so seeing this kind of retention just shows the efforts that have been going on to try to make sure we keep students and get them to graduation. And then as far as industry relationships, we wanted to put up the Sponsor a Scholar because of the huge change that's happened there. And Sponsor a Scholar is where we have the Build Dakota, but the companies can sponsor a student, pay for half, Build Dakota pays for half, then we use the Build Dakota for another student. So it helps us impact more students. And that went up 46, we're expecting about 46 students from last year to this year. So that's going to be a huge number for us. And so it just shows industry partners are looking at us and they're saying, good job, we want to help out. Some challenges. Like any college or post-secondary, we have some challenges. The first was elimination of collective bargaining. That totally changed things in terms of how we operate with our employees. And some of the things we've done to work on that is an employee handbook that is for all employees. That is very similar to how we work with all employees. Making sure we're not trying to take anything away from people. We're respecting what they had before, but making those necessary changes that we needed to. And then the President's Council. So President started a council that is representatives from across staff or employees from across the Institute who are elected by their particular area to be part of the council, and then they work on the handbook and what we can make for changes. And competitiveness. We know we've got to become more competitive. There's everybody who wants these students right now. One of the things we do is administrative restructuring, just moving different positions and moving different people into other positions to use strengths. So we make sure we're using the right people, doing the right things to make the biggest impact. And also personnel and department adjustments. Big differences in admissions, for example, of how we're structured and what they do, and better utilization of the software we have so we can reach out to those students. And one of the challenges we've had in the previous years has been stagnant salaries. Giving that 2% for this coming year is a big step. It's the first time we've been able to do that for a while. So those are all real, maybe challenges, but we found some ways to make them hopefully into successes. Competitiveness, a little bit more on that, is one of the things that has happened is the Staymates report, where we actually asked a company to come in, just tell us what are we good at and what can we improve. And some of the things they were really pointing out to us is that we are the leader for graduating the most associate degrees in those areas that you see on there. We are far above the other technical institutes in those areas. We're a leader of offering the most fast-track career programs that can be completed in less than 2 years. We offer the biggest variety. We enroll the most adult learners, and that's not always easy when you're dealing with non-traditional students. When they come back, you got to really help them out and spend some more time with them. We are the smart choice for students of all ages who want a great career. That was kind of their quote that they put in there. We wanted to share that. And what was really kind of interesting is they do a survey of alumni, employees. I might have even surveyed some of you, but basically 80% of our internal audience would unequivocally recommend Southeast Tech to someone who is planning to attend college. And they said that's one of the highest they've ever seen. And so obviously our internal audiences, our alumni, they really value what they receive at Southeast Tech. So that's a good sign.
So what we're going to do today is kind of go over the strategic plan. You guys have seen this slide before. We have the 4 pillars, and basically leadership, marketing, recruitment, programming, and then resource sustainability. And we did a foundation, and as President Gregg said, Patrick was a main part of that with the Futures Committee. We've done a lot in training. The Professional Development Committee is offering training year-round instead of just like in-service. Tracy and I have been working on SPOL, which is Strategic Planning Online. It's a planning software. It's going to allow us to track what we're doing for a strategic plan. We're also able to do assessment. We're looking at expanding it in the future. We'll be able to use it for HLC, for accreditation, for teaching credentials, and then also for program accreditation. And then the other thing is the evaluation of outcomes and targets. And that's kind of what we're looking at today is where are we sitting, but then also the evaluation is also our personal evaluation. So Southeast Tech moved to one common evaluation that all employees get, and the strategic plan is part of that, and how are our staff basically helping us on that plan. So we have the 4 pillars, and you can read them. The one point I want to point out in this slide is the recruitment and enrollment was not specifically in the plan. It was across the plan or through the plan. So all 4 of those pillars are really kind of helping us focus on that recruitment and enrollment. And as Tracy explained in the first slide, we have increased in our recruitment. What we've done is basically in the strategic plan, we've taken all of these individual areas and assigned them to committees and teams. And then Tracy has done an analysis. And so what we have is a summary of those analyses. You can definitely have the full 47-page document to read as well. So we will hit the highlights for you.
So Pillar 1, institutional leadership and management. Some really highlights that we've seen on that is one is a lot of the information we gather is from an internal survey. It's called the No-Levitz. It tells us what employees are thinking about Southeast Tech. One of the things the campus climate team wanted to do was have at least 50% take that. We reached over the 50% in both terms of faculty and with staff. In fact, I think both were over 60% participation. So we know the results we're getting are really an indicator of what they're thinking. One of the comments on there, and it was a scale that goes up to 5. We had a 3.07, 3.51. You'll see those numbers on there. The reputation of the institution continues to improve. That went up from 3.07 the last time we gave this to 3.51, which is a huge increase. Employees' efforts to improve quality are paying off. They believe it is paying off. More of them do. The goals and objectives of this institution are consistent with this mission and vision. Again, they see that what we're trying to do in this plan does match what we should be doing in terms of our mission and vision. And faculty and staff feel more included in the strategic planning and implementation. This was a big one. We really wanted all employees to start feeling like they are playing a part in this. And that went from a 2.89 to a 3.13, so that's really positive to see. Internal communications. This is always a concern, and it's always something we want to address. And I wouldn't say we weren't thrilled with the results that we received. Department-to-department communications was constant. Didn't see any real change in the information there. Faculty administration communication did dip some from 3.02 to 2.9. Administration communication to staff dipped also. And the overall satisfaction went down. But if we look at some of the factors of why we think those kinds of things, if you remember, we were just recently going through a debt, and we were trying to find cuts. And every time you try to find cuts, that immediately affects employees, and employees react to that, that idea. Obviously, salaries can play a part in that. The falling enrollment, when your enrollments are falling, it's difficult for people to get excited about things because they see those things happening. And the major adjustments to personnel and departments. We've had a lot of changes that have taken place in a lot of different areas, and that can lead to that storming stage where people are unsure of themselves and what's happening and so forth. What I really appreciate, though, is President Griggs has made this a key issue or key area we are continuing to work on. The President's Council was a great way to start, but even today in our meeting, he was talking again and saying, look, we have to continue to find ways to build this communication between all employees and find a way to make people feel very comfortable. And so we will continue to work on that one.
Is this FY16?
What?
Is this FY16?
Yeah, it was FY16 to FY18.
Maybe clarify that before.
We do it every 2 years. So we did it this spring. The last time we do it was in 2016, spring 2016. So we do it every 2 years.
The survey?
The survey, yeah. Formalize dynamic internal community. So here's some actions we've taken. Campus climate, we'll do a full analysis of that survey. That survey was done in spring. I am writing the report that really goes into detail as far as what it's telling us. Campus climate team will then look at those results, and then they will make some action plans based on them. We created an onboarding process for new employees, and we're implementing it this year to start it, to pilot it. Focus on internal communications of President's Council, campus notes. The training has been incredible. The amount of professional development that committee is putting together is just really making a difference. Our communication process within our committees and our internal newsletter are some other things we're doing to help build that communication. The second part of Pillar 1 is involve internal stakeholders. This is an area that did go up, and it's kind of a different way. So if you look at the targets, employee involvement in planning increased, and faculty involvement in budget exceeded the target. Staff involvement increased slightly. Administrative involvement decreased slightly. Now that looks all kind of weird. The way the survey does it is it says if you're at 3, you have just the right amount of participation. If you're at a 4, for example, you're too high, got too much. If you're at a 2, you have too low. What's happening is faculty are getting closer to the 3, staff are getting closer to 3, and administration is moving away a little bit because we were too high, so we're getting closer to the 3 from the upside. And so all of those point to employees feeling they're more involved in the budget, they're more involved in the planning, which is exactly what we wanted to do. We changed the committees and how the committees work. That's made a difference. They're chairing and co-chairing rather than administrators doing it. So we're kind of sitting back and letting them do some of that direction. Academics moved all administrators to a new process for previous budgets. So we're trying to get them more involved in the budget and involved earlier so they can have input. Again, like I said, the new committee structure. Actions, other ones, reorganization of the committee structure, we did chair and co-chairs, and then the strategic planning online is just going to be a huge help for us. HLC is going to expect we have something where they can see exactly what we're doing. They're going to, doing this report in front of you right now is key to HLC because they have to know that we actually went through this with you. All those things, but having it in one location where we can pull it, we can see what's going on, and where we're not making gains will help us to make sure we have achieved the strategic plan. Collegiate experience. That's the second part of the pillar was collegiate experience, finding ways to get students connected with other colleges. And we've reached the target. We've been above the target in terms of that. We've done things like sports, like basketball, playing in tournaments that other colleges play in. We've done it in terms of service learning opportunities where pennies for, I can't remember what it's called. Pennies for.
There's going to be a quiz.
Yeah, I know. But anyway, they collect pennies, and whoever collect the most pennies, and we do that against other colleges. So we're trying to find ways where we can connect with USF, Augie, SDSU, whoever it is, the other technical institutes. The hub really is about using the building, just trying to find ways to get other industries in. And the events increased to 12 from our target. Originally, we started with 2, we ended up with 12, so we're definitely making it there. And this is a key focus of the student success team. We're looking at getting more opportunities for post-secondary and then more opportunities for the hub use. So we've got some good stuff coming.
So the next area is improving student success and retention. And as Tracy talked about in one of the very first slides, we have bumped up from 65.7 to 69.3. The possible factors here, we just listed some. I mean, when you look at retention, it's all about relationships. So this is the entire community coming together. So we put some of the main things. We have some certificates, the academic advising. We've done work through scholarships. There's a much better, broader openness to diversity on campus. You're seeing that when you're on campus now, that we have a better population, and people are really trying to recruit that student as well. So some of the actions, some of the bigger ones, you'll see Aspire to Tech coming up a lot. That's a bridge platform that basically, through the ELL-ESL committee, we were looking at, again, how do you have these students who probably aren't going to go into a full program but still need to be serviced by Southeast Tech? And so through the Hubland Learning Center, we have Jenny Keys, and I think she'll come present on this as well. We're looking at how do we teach them. Typically it's communication and math. And so what we did was we focused on 2 areas, healthcare and then welding for the other. And so when we were talking about the communication and math, we got a subject matter expert from healthcare who was one of our certified nursing instructors, and then we got a welding instructor, and they helped develop the curriculum. So when we're teaching communications and math, we're teaching communications and math towards healthcare. And then the student can take the certified nursing exam. Then we also did it for welding, and again, we have a certificate there. So this allows a student to get a certificate that makes them employable. They also have that opportunity then to work in the field for a while and then maybe come back for more certificates or a future degree. So you will see that Aspire to Tech many times. So the next one is talking about making sure that we develop, retain, and attract top faculty and staff. This year, and with the, we had 12.4%. And exceeded the target. This year we've done a lot of hiring. We had a lot of personal where families were moving out. We also have, there is some concern with the retirement, so some people are taking advantage of that retirement bonus now. So retirement rates were higher. There is a probability we will have that again next year. We have had, as Tracy talked about, the enrollment decline and stagnant wages. Sometimes that does help influence. But what we've done, as Tracy said, we've increased our salary. We're getting a couple % raise. We've done a lot of through professional development. This year, we also redid all of the job descriptions in academics, and we broke down by category what folks are responsible for. Obviously, people come in and see, well, I'm going to be teaching. But there's a lot more. There's technology. There's, internal communication. There's external communication. We're trying to be as forefront as we can to make sure people understand what it means to become a faculty member at Southeast Tech. And then, as we mentioned a little bit before, we also have that standardized evaluation that, again, ties people into the strategic plan. And instead of Tracy and I having one evaluation and a clerical having a different, they're all common. Okay? Faculty certification and accreditation through HLC. We did have one program that did lose its accreditation, and that's diesel. We're having them redo it, and that's an area, if we can get it in SPOL, then it'll be electronic. Part of the issue was we actually lost some paperwork, which caused that issue. When Vet Tech comes online, we will also move that to an accreditation status, so that will get us back up to 16 and probably 17. When it comes to individual faculty, we are credentialed at 100%. We have to be for HLC and just for best practices. Okay. The planning, resource, implementing state-of-the-art facilities and technologies. As we had talked about, this started a couple years ago, and this is one of the areas that we haven't focused on, setting out targets, but it is something that we are working on as well. So we have the Campus Technology Committee working on that, and we're looking at the academic areas to make sure that we are budgeting for those. And also through that, we have the quality improvement process, and I'll give you an example of that. So QIP is something we used to have. It kind of went away. We brought it back. So right now we're working with HVAC. Okay? Their lab has not been renovated probably since the Edwood building was built. So one of the things that we've noticed in there is we have that. So now we're putting it in the planning process, putting in the budgeting process, and hopefully next year or the following year we'll be able to make those changes. For the most part, we've done a really good job of this without it listed as a strategic plan, so that's why it wasn't one of the major focuses.
Yeah, a couple of things I'll mention on that is not everything in the strategic plan at this point are things we focused on yet. Some of them are things we'll focus on later because you can't do everything at once. But the second thing is, on this particular one, it says continue planning. They're always planning. We're always doing that. But that QIP process almost needed to be in place first, because that really is about taking a look at in-depth of a program and saying what exactly are you missing and what exactly would help you move forward. And within the next 3 years, the plan is to have gone through that process with every single program. So it gets within that strategic plan, and that allows us to look and say, okay, yes, you need this. We will put that into the budget 2 years down the line or 3 years down the line. So this is just some more information about recruiting enrollment, because these are some of the targets that we set, and to just give you an idea where we're at. I'm a color person. I like to see color. If we have a green, that'd be within, we met the target for that year. If we are in yellow, that means we're 90% of the target. If we're in red, we're below 90% of the target. You'll see that each year in this case, there's a target. There's a result, R, there's a target, T, so you can get an idea of how close we were. When it comes to total fall student enrollments, this last FY18, we were within 90% of target. The year before, we were below that. So we've made great gains. Increase of 3% per year of new students in fall program enrollments. We are in the green this past year, and I believe, and I'm hopeful, we're going to be in the green in FY19 as well. So that's good. And then the increase of 5% of Sioux Falls new high school grad enrollments. We do not get a lot of students directly out of Sioux Falls. We get them eventually, and a huge part of our population are Sioux Falls grads, but they go somewhere else first. Then they come to Southeast. And that's part of that 40% of transfer students that we get that transfer in. But we need to find ways to get more of them to immediately come to Southeast Tech, rather than go and spend money in the 4-year and then find that's not for, or not only just 4-year, but anywhere, and then find out that's not for them and then come to us. And so one of our efforts is to really increase that number. Renee Oinas is a great way for us, a career coach, having that there, and working with Josh Hall and the CT is going to make a difference in that. So you'll see we were 90% of the target. I'm hoping FY19 we're going to turn out to be above target. So that's the goal there. Marketing. So marketing is a huge thing that we're working with. This one is one of those where it's like we have not looked at this one yet. It was set up in the strategic plan to meet with high school student leaders I've even looked at it and said, I'm not sure high school student leaders are the ones we need to be talking with. It might be the overall population. It might be those that aren't going anywhere. The 30% that aren't going on to higher ed. Maybe we need to talk to them more and figure out their needs and what they would, how we could help them. So I think we might see some differences on this one, but it's one where we have not focused because we've got other areas we're focusing on. Refine and expand the process to best reach and leverage high school teachers and counselors. Obviously, having Renee has been a big help with that. It's huge to have her available and help us connect in that area. The concurrent credit with CTE, the increases in that have been excellent. The Bring Your A game we're doing down there. The pre-apprenticeships, which will come up later, huge change in doing that. So we have a lot of different aspects taking place. We have not set necessarily a target for this, and we want to start looking at that. But in terms of trying to find more and more focus areas and get the word out, we're doing that. We just now need to figure out what is our target going to be for that. The most effective way to communicate and parent with parents, several things we've done is the pre-college advisor, which is Anna Fisher at Southeast Tech. She reaches out to students, parents, especially does a lot with dual credit, so she's working with those individuals on dual credit. Our AAR sessions, our scrub camps, all of those are ways we reach out. One of the ones I'm really excited about is Renee is looking at ways to get at more of those parents within the Sioux Falls school district, so we can reach out to them and then help them see the benefit of coming to Southeast, especially those that aren't going anywhere at this point. Alumni, this is another one. One of the things I think that could be really good for the alumni is the 50th anniversary, which is coming up. And it's not unusual when it comes to 2-year. Alumni is not always it's not the same as a 4-year, and it certainly isn't the same as a private. And even donations that you get from alumni isn't nearly at the level you get at a private or even at a 4-year college. But it is an area we just don't do as much as we could, I believe, in alumni. So that is one of the areas we're kind of waiting for the capital campaign to get into so we can spend more time on alumni once that capital campaign is done. Resource to refresh the marketing message. You saw the Staymates. That's a big part of it. Now we're going to take that Staymates information and then we'll start implementing it. One of the things that Staymate said you really need to do is look at your website and make adjustments, and we put that extra funding in there to do that. We have a new person coming into marketing in terms of the management side, enrollment management side, and we have a new person, a graphics person coming in. So we'll have some brand new people coming in to help with that, and then we're going to work a lot on that website. So, promotional program to key partners. This one is such a hard one because we do this all the time, and the biggest thing we have to do now is we really want the external stakeholders team to sit down and come up with a target. And what we're going to do is the regularly effective communication. So we want to start looking at how many times a year are we going to make sure we get some kind of word out to our partners so that we never forget one. So yeah, we have this great partnership, but somehow we lost it. We don't want to lose those. And so one of the things we want to do is pull together all of those partnerships, then develop messaging that we can give to them consistently throughout the year. There is some things happening with the capital campaign in terms of database information that we can gather, and then we can use that information to help us move forward on this one.
One of the goals of last year was to reduce the number of committees. And then the committee started working, and then it started expanding again. And then we try to reduce, and then we expand, And it's just, that's one of the things that's happened in this case is we keep finding great ways to focus, but we just don't have the personnel to spend that time. So it's causing a delay, but it's something we have to do just because of the number of folks on committees.
And again, this is just more of that same. Some of these are kind of the same or very similar, but dealing with businesses and area companies. The forums, the forums that we had, the breakfast forums, have been a huge help in us determining what our industry partners need. And we were planning on having 10. We've had, or let's see, exceeded by holding 10. We held 10, which was above the number that we actually were planning to hold. And then in Career Connections, which is our software for Career Connections, the number of employers in terms of companies and individuals and in students far exceeded how we expected it to get. So we're way above on that. And also the job listings is way above what we got. So all of that points, again, to industry saying we're ready and we want to partner with you. Communicating with regional and local districts, we do this all the time. And again, all of the stuff you want to look at is back in Pillar 2. That's with the enrollments and the Sioux Falls increase in enrollments. Another one we have is where we want, and it comes up later, is increasing the ethnic diversity at the institute. And so we're looking at how a percentage increase in that as well. Career coach and the DLR coaches, the ones from the Department of Labor, are going to be a huge help in that. Utilize data to inform program development. This is where SPOL comes in, our academic excellence team coming in and doing the QIP will all help us to get that information out there and talk about program development, how to make them stronger.
Kind of a weird aspect of the quality improvement program, because you've all been part of these before. We actually have programs asking to be placed on it because they want to improve their program area. So it was a very nice pilot this year with the volunteers and voluntold. But then for next year, the people were really kind of jockeying to see where they could go. The next area is looking at the optimal catalog. And so we have 56 programs for this year's target for FY18. And we did put in some South Dakota Pass certifications, which is a partnership with Dakota State and the district. And that helped us get that. The target for next year are 60 programs. Right now I'm working on 3 prospectuses. And those are actually full programs. So the 60 should be a very obtainable target for us for next year as well. When we're looking at that, we've also had, Tracy and I have talked about how the committees have stepped up. The Ed Design and Delivery Committee has really, started researching these program areas. I just got back from Rapid City from the CTE conference. We had 2 members go out there just to look at agriculture programs. We're meeting with an agriculture group next week. We have people on the agriculture boards on town, just because of the educational design and delivery aspects. We also have a couple other certificates that are ready to go with the light duty diesel and the commercial driver's license. Those take finances that right now we did not allocate for that. The light duty diesel is, your F-250s and so on. There is a need for them in town. We've actually made it as an addition to our automotive program. It would be offered in the summer, and depending upon funding, that would be ready to go next year. And the CDL is time, because there's a fair amount of seat time. Lon can explain that for you better. And trying to get that included into an academic program. We can make the scheduling work, but we basically have to hire an instructor for working with 4 people at a time. And that is an expense that we have to consider carefully.
We have accounting diploma and a bookkeeping diploma and a bookkeeping certificate that starts this fall. And there's their 3 IT, 4 IT.
Yeah, 2 networking and 2 programs.
Yeah, certificates that begin this fall.
So then, continuing on with that, we're talking about maximizing the short-term and customizable training. Again, we've talked about the Ed Design and Delivery team. This is a major emphasis of Lon. The construction pre-apprenticeship has been extremely successful. We had 10 people start in June, and we're going to have 10 people end August 10th. The contractors are overjoyed. We have good diversity in the program. I was meeting with our construction management instructor today. We're going to try to revamp our curriculum to help provide a pathway into Southeast. In addition, Lon has put together a lot of other apprenticeships that are listed there. We've talked about the South Dakota Pass. And then we're also going to look at manufacturing next year as a pre-apprenticeship, in the similar format. In addition, the pre-apprenticeship for construction will have a second year. So where the new students might be coming in Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, they'll only come in on Fridays, and they'll be on the job most of those other days.
And I think that's really important to look at, and that's just so impressive to me to have that many apprenticeships. Apprenticeships are not easy. It's a lot of work, and trying to even get industry to the point where they're ready, and then finding the people, the students to take it. To get that many going is, most colleges, most places would not even attempt that. They might do 1, and that would be it. So I'm really impressed with that.
So the next one is the gateway services for the Sioux Falls, area individual standard, the regional. Our number actually went down, and what I see on campus, it doesn't look like it.
The number went down. At least the percentage went down. But I think as we're moving more towards the students we're trying to get into the institute, we're going to see that number change. So, I don't know if I'd put much stock in that 1 year of numbers. I would wait and see what happens next.
So we have an ESL committee, and we're going to broaden that to diversity committee, and we'll make it at a higher level. We're actually going to try to bring industry into that meeting as well, so it might be Southeast people this month, and then once every other month they'll have people from industry. We talked about Aspire to Tech, the sector breakfast. We're also looking at a Center for Workforce Opportunity. This is something, with the possible vacation of the nursing program from the health building. Maybe this was an idea that came out of one of the sector breakfasts, is an area for diversity development. And calling it workforce opportunity is a lot better than calling it a diversity center. And then, of course, we're also trying to do our marketing. So one of the things is we are all very white, and the campus looks white, and the marketing is white, and all the signs in the building look like me. Well, not that pretty, but like me. So articulation agreements, we are actually trying to do 2 a year. Right now, we have 6 pending with SDSU, and then we also are looking at SDSU for Hort Turf and Vet Tech. We're working with Dakota State for networking and programming. So this might be one of those targets that we're going to exceed immediately and then bring it forward. We don't have the out-of-state articulation agreements as part of the goal, but it's still something that we're going to add.
Oh, yeah, we do now. It says one out of state annually.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So Tracy and I decided to add that in.
Maybe I decided.
Yeah, I'm going to say the PowerPoint has changed, so that's good. But we do have an agreement with SMSU. I'm working with St. Cloud State and the University of North Dakota on surveying as well. But we're also looking at this going the other direction, working with high schools and concurrent. So last year we were able to put 17 credits in the Academy of Finance, 4 credits with the networking program. Again, I was just back from Rapid City or the CTE conference. This was one of the program areas that they are looking at, and so I was able to talk a little bit to that group.
And this was nice. It's done.
Done.
Amendment R, it's done. So that was good. Leverage partnerships. So some of these you're not going to see a lot on because a lot of these next ones have to do with the capital campaign, and Shelley still won't let us tell you much about where the capital campaign is. So you're not going to see a lot of necessarily data on that. This is where we talk about the 2 communications annually and implement 2 legislative forums. One of the forums we want to add is for the legislators. Get them on campus. Let them at least know where we're at and what our needs are so they're aware of that.
Oh.
Would you like to me?
I don't know what I did.
Maximize the impact of Southeast Tech. We talked about the sponsor scholar. That's one way, but obviously in the sector breakfasts help out too. We have the Mike Rowe event coming too, so that's another one that's coming. But again, the capital campaign will be coming. And this one talks about grants. So we now have a person who is more dedicated to grants and looking at grants, and I am helping to work with grants as well. And so we're hopeful that we're going to be able to pull in some additional grants. We did apply for the city grant again. That's one we got last year for $250,000. We're very hopeful we'll get it again this year. We should know in September. And then this last one is really about the capital campaign. You'll notice double the ethnic diversity population to 20%. That's one of the goals specifically tied to that capital campaign. But so is the increase in enrollment to 3,000 students. Our highest, I believe, is just over 2,600. So even our highest, that's a significant change. And then raising the funds, which does include the money for the vet tech. So that 6.2 includes the vet tech as well. And then the increase in the number of degrees, certificates, and diplomas.
And Shelley did present today that the donations are coming in at a better rate. So.
Oh, sorry to take that much time, but it's a lot of good stuff. You got to share it, right?
That's right.
Question?
Just going back to the surveys,
Yeah.
is there a reason why we only survey staff once a year or once every 2 years?
You know, one, it's expensive. I mean, and it's not terribly expensive because you're not doing a whole lot at that time. The main reason when we first set it up is, one, if you survey every year, you don't give yourself time to look and make actual changes. So a lot of times they haven't quite adjusted yet for it. The second thing is people, to get them to take the survey is almost pulling teeth sometimes. And if they have to do it every year, then you're like pulling extra teeth. And sometimes they just don't want to do it that often.
Yeah.
It is something to bring up with the campus. You know, even if we could do, and what I'm thinking is, what I might suggest that we would do is not do the whole survey, but take those particular areas we're really trying to improve, such as communication, and just doing that. because a survey goes into a lot of other things, like how do you like your benefits, do you find your benefits are worthwhile?
How many questions are there on the survey?
Oh, there's over, probably not 100.
Oh,
But it's fairly significant.
It's a lot. Yeah. But yeah, like Tracy was saying, if we follow up with a qualitative, and like in every other year.
Because I don't think I need every year to know if you think the benefits are worthwhile or your pay is worthwhile, but I certainly think those areas we're working on, the campus climate team could create something to say, look, are we making improvements? Are you feeling better about that? I think that
yeah.
would.
I mean, I just think, Carly and I both work for large organizations in the city, and we both probably take yearly,
But there are like 12 to 15 questions.
right.
Yeah.
So,
What I would really
minutes.
appreciate if you guys, if you have, I don't know if you can share those.
Oh, I mean, they're pretty well known. I mean, Gallup is,
12.
there's like there's 12 questions.
Yeah, if
and-
there's ones that you can send or let me know or whatever, because, this is proprietary, the Noel Levitz is proprietary. To use exactly the same question, they may or may not say, wait a minute, that's our question, you can't use that same word.
Have we ever gone to them and asked, do you have a shortened version?
They do have, their shortened version is still a lot of questions, but I don't know they have one that small. But I think I'm able to say, look, if I just use 10 of your questions, is that okay? I have a good enough relationship with them, I may be able to do something like
I
that.
think,
Just choose
yeah,
those certain
some sort of, I
ones.
mean,
Condensed on odd years or whatever,
Yeah, I think that
odd
makes
years.
sense to do
Yeah.
for that. Yeah,
Even department specific too, like.
right.
but
Yeah.
you want that yearly, data so that you can see the changes, because you have done so much in terms of, I think about communication, which we talked about and you brought up, the efforts you've made in just communicating have increased greatly just in this last
Yes,
year.
yes.
And, to only measure that every 2 years, you can't really see, okay, did what we do this last year work, or do we need to tweak it for next year?
Well, even when you think of that President's Council didn't start until either right when this survey was given or after. So they really didn't have a President's Council to even,
Yeah.
and asking a question about the President's Council might be valuable just to see, yes, I think that is helping with
Yeah.
communication, then we would know, I like that, yeah.
I mean, I know it's an investment, but I think it's a great way for people to feel heard and to monitor things a little bit more real time. And I think too, like, you give the survey, and then people know that when they get those results, you need to have an action
Yeah.
for what you're going to do to impact that, because you know that the next year you're going to have another survey asking about those same things. And not that you only do it for the survey results, but if you get feedback, wow, what a great way to say, now I know what I need to change, or I didn't realize that people appreciated this piece of what I was doing so much. I better make sure I don't stop doing that, because that's valuable to people, So I think there's things on both sides of that.
And if you take it every year, staff are used to it coming every year, and so you can get good results. I mean, I know just in my segment at Avera, we had 94% participation, or 98% participation rate. I mean, that's a good number. We're always striving for 100%, but, there's always those few that refuse to take a survey. But, yeah. Okay.
Good suggestion to shorten the survey. I think you'll find your result percentage of people taking it will be higher, and then you can do it every year, and that gives you a better benchmark to work on. So good suggestions.
But very impressive list of all of the things that you guys have accomplished over the course of the last year, for sure. When you think about the number of people that it took to make those things happen, I mean, it's clearly not just the two of you standing there. There's more than even just the people who are sitting over here. It's really a joint team effort campus-wide to really make some big differences, and everything from what does the website look like to, realigning positions and making them the most effective for the whole campus. They're all important decisions and not always easy ones. And so it's good to be reflective and look back and say, wow, look how far we've come and look at what we've accomplished. So
Tracy and I have been at Southeast a long time, and I think with our committee work, and we just put in a couple of teachers on special assignment, and the directions that they're heading are all
Huge. It's exciting.
positive.
It's exciting.
It's interesting when you change the structure as much as we did, because there's times you just want to fix it, but then we also have to set back and let things develop as well. So I think for where we're at in the strategic plan, I feel very positive on what we've accomplished.
One thing to let you know, too, we did present this to the council, and two things the council will bring forward is a recommendation of whether or not we should continue with this strategic plan or do a new one. And they're also going to come forward and say whether we should continue on with our current mission statement or change or suggest reviewing it. That's something we'll do every year as well. HLC wants us to look at every year having some kind of formal way where we actually look to say, is this mission statement still good? Is the strategic plan still good? Because obviously, in about 3 or 4 years, we're going to look at the strategic plan and say, maybe it's time to start a new one before this one ends, so the new one's ready to go. So you will see that probably the next meeting or the one after that, where we're going to come forward and say, this is the recommendation, and then have you guys approve or deny that, however you see.
All right.
That's good. Great.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I have a motion to acknowledge the update on the strategic plan?
So moved.
Second.
Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And we are on to policies. And as you can see, we have A through L are all review revise. And I am on the policy review committee. We did have a lengthy meeting, and on all of those policies, they were really very simple language changes, updates to include new state law, federal law, and no real substantive changes to the policies themselves. So rather than boring you with reading every single one of them, I would move for approval of review revise item 9, A through L.
Second.
Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. And then item 10, first read on a new policy, policy JICK, and its accompanying regulation, and that is on sexual misconduct. That is a lengthy policy. It is one that that the Policy Review Committee did look at. We had Kate Bartel-Nowak review that, and it's something that we need to have in place, and would move for approval of first reading of that policy.
Second.
Discussion. Hearing no discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Any other business to come before the board? If not, may I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
We are adjourned. Thank you all.